We're gonna watch this here.
Hello Eorzeans! Welcome back to the fall and rise of Final Fantasy XIV. And I have to make 2 corrections from my previous video. One minor and one major. So let's get the minor one out of the way first. There were forums during the alpha and beta tests, but not at launch. This was just a silly error that I didn't catch while condensing my script. So yeah, forums during testing, no forums at
they
launch.
took the forums out.
Now
That's so dumb.
The big correction is the one about the leaves. I mistakenly said that
Also, I missed this animation here. Like, their facial animations are so good. Like, if you watch, I guess, the 1.0 cutscenes, like, the animation is so good. And I'm just like, I know it's not an ARR yet. I hope it comes back, because I'm really blown away by it.
that you had a limit of 99 leaves that recharged for every 12 hours. Well, it was actually worse at launch. Only 8 leaves were available every 36 hours. This was simply wiped from my memory, and I apologize for this error. I will do better in this episode, I promise. Also, massive shout out to everyone keeping me in line. It's important that this series is accurate, and you're all a big help. Now then.
I heard from somebody in the comments that the Japanese government, I think it was the Japanese government, was trying to find ways to limit people from, like, playing video games, like, excessively way too much. So I think that this was maybe implemented by policy, that they're trying to find ways to, like, stop people from going so hard in the game. And I was like, it makes sense if you think about it, because like in America we don't have any kind of rules like that. It's consume. But over there, I think they like, even now, like, China is curbing the amount of hours I think you can play on game. I don't know the full thing. I'll have to look it up later. But they are making efforts to limit the amount of time that you are playing a game. Which, look, let's be real. Okay, if you're playing a game for like 20 hours, like that, maybe you shouldn't. But yeah, that's what I heard.
Where were we? Oh yeah, the game trying to make you stop playing. So let's say you are in need of some gear, because gods you would be, seeing as gear drops were ridiculously rare due to the lacking content. Well, you'd have to go visit your local market ward. The most popular one at the time being Ul'dah, due to its close proximity to the AETHERYTE crystal and other amenities. Back in 1.0, Limsa was the least popular city-state because of its outspread layout. And where you would now find the AETHERYTE Plaza in A Realm Reborn, there used to be nothing. Except for this statue.
The hell is that?
Ironically looks like one of the A Realm Reborn AETHERYTE crystals that would soon replace it.
Yeah, it actually does.
So we're going into the market wards. You now have to choose from a list where you want to go.
Those HUD menus.
There were different wards for different things, but with names like Tinkerer's Row and Upper Tailor's Row, you really had to learn where you wanted to go. Each ward had its own specialty, so as in the case of Upper Tailor's Row, you would mostly find gear ranging from level 41 and up. Thus the, upper, I guess? Once inside, you were presented with this. These are retainers. Retainers would be placed there with whatever their owner told them to sell, and no, there was no search system, so you had to browse them manually, and hope that one of them had something.
Wait, are you telling me that I had to browse general chat and scroll through text without a separate menu to find items? Oh my god.
Something you needed, and pray they've priced them sensibly.
What the
Often
fuck?
people didn't, because they knew people wouldn't want to search for an item all day and compare prices. And you had no choice but to buy it. To make it all better, because of the limitations on how many characters you could see at any one time, you had to move around to ensure you could load up all the retainers, so you can probably just imagine how fun that was. Oh,
dude,
but there
good
was
lord.
more in store for unsuspecting players. The game's fast travel system, the AETHERYTES. Generally, when people that didn't play 1.0 look at a 1.0 map, they usually exclaim that there are a lot of AETHERYTES around. Well, maybe the AETHERYTE density is slightly higher than in A Realm Reborn, but boy, the devs
I like
had
the
a
AETHERYTE
treat for
system
us.
that we have.
ANIMA. And no,
ANIMA.
I'm not talking about the Heavensward ANIMA relic. I'm talking about the real OG ANIMA, the 1.0 teleport currency. Oh yes.
There was a separate
1.0,
currency?
You didn't pay gil to fast travel.
No.
You had to use a, you guessed it, rechargeable currency. And you're thinking to yourself, well, it can't be that bad. Girl,
How rare is the currency, though? That's my
You can only
question.
carry a maximum of 100 anima at any given time. Teleporting within your current region cost 4 anima, while teleporting to another region cost about 6 anima. Fair enough, you think, but how fast does the anima recharge? Well, hold on tight.
Oh,
You
no.
get 1 anima every 4 hours. I can't even comment on that. Well, Lukiel, you say, why didn't you just use your chocobo to get around?
Why?
Yes, sure, there were chocobos around. You could see them in every city-state, and sure, they had saddles and the whole setup there, but hey, who needs to actually ride them, right? Right?
What
yeah,
the fuck?
that's right. In Final Fantasy XIV 1.0, you couldn't ride chocobos.
I remember they
were
said
just
that.
unfinished decorations in the city-states with no actual functionality whatsoever.
Man,
So that
I remember
meant
that.
you had to actually walk through the black
Spaghetti
shroud
hallways!
on foot,
Make it stop.
physically moving from this point to this point
That would take
on foot.
days, dude.
Why?
Yeah. Why, dude?
Let's take a few steps back and look at one of the assets
It would
that was
take
sure
days.
to be one of the redeeming qualities of this game. The trademark all Final Fantasies pride themselves with. The main story. Well,
And the
opening
animation.
cinematics for
I'll
the
say it
initial
again.
city-states
Animation's
sure
really
seem to
good.
tease one hell of an interesting main story plot. But the air is quickly kicked out of it after the first initial quest. What seems like
Oh,
a great
that's
engaging story with
definitely
lots
not
of
good.
interesting and intriguing plot devices is soon replaced with dull and empty quests involving shallow NPCs you never see again, and fetch quests with little to no relevance to the plot. And yes, I am aware that the latter was pretty normal at the time,
Oh my god.
but the reason why these fetch quests were especially infuriating was that the main story was spread so thin, you could go as long as 10 levels before actually unlocking a main story quest. And then hey, fetch quest with no actual relevance. And you're thinking, 10 levels? Pfft, get good, scrub. You've clearly forgotten
That's
about
just
the 8
pain,
quests
man.
every 36 hours, the lack of mobs in the overworld, and the fatigue system.
Yeah.
All in all, the main story
Yep,
arc was
the fatigue would make
overall
us
flat and not
way
very
harder.
interesting. Sure, there were some instances where the main story was intriguing, but all in all, it felt rushed and thin. To 1.0's credit though, the first part of the main story is actually split into 3 different versions, depending on what city-state you choose to start in.
Oh, okay.
So to sum up the main storyline for 1.0, I'm going to use Limsa Lominsa's storyline as our starting point, and I'll explain it in broad strokes until it merges with the unified main storyline.
The animations are
I'm
so
actually
good,
considering
though.
making a 1.0 story summary video in the future. Let me know in the comments if you're interested. For now, I'll just go through
yeah.
the key plot points in the 1.0 Limsa storyline. Okay, here we go. You,
Oh, he made this years ago. He probably already made it by
the
now.
adventurer, wakes up in a ship, hearing a soft singing voice. Yet despite clearly hearing someone, you cannot see anyone fitting that voice around you.
Oh, you're
The
finally
voice
awake.
calls out the ever-famous words, hear, feel, think. You start exploring the ship, and eventually you walk out on deck. And hey, foreshadowing meteor shower.
That's kind of cool. That's actually
Then
kind
the
of
ship
sick.
gets attacked by jellyfish. You meet Y'shtola and Stallman, and together you fight the jellyfish. But hey, sea serpent! You fight
Hey,
the
it's a
rival
2
of
FPS
Tolomitsa,
monster.
and everything is great. Some stupid Lalafell in the Fisherman's Guild asks you to escort another stupid Lalafell to Ocean's Torch. But when you know it, there are dead bodies everywhere, and 2 shady blokes standing around. Apparently one of the guys wants to make an agreement with the Sahagins, but then they spot you, and they leave. You head back into town, and it becomes clear that the Sahagin have been attacking a lot lately, especially around Ocean's Torch, so it sure was nice of that Lalafell to send a new adventurer to that very dangerous place with another helpless Lalafell.
It's my sleep paralysis demon.
Huh. Anyway, you meet Badron, and he starts telling you about a place called Seal Rock, a mysterious island that is famous amongst the Lominsans for hiding away some massive treasure. Anyway, you meet up with Y'shtola again, and she tells you she's looking for a shadowless man that apparently stands accused for murdering Sahagins and basically being the reason why the Sahagin are so enraged.
Okay.
Badron tells us that the Lalafell we escorted earlier, Sisyphus, wants to talk to you. Sisyphus, being a fisher herself, reveals a very secret fishing
Best name
hole
ever,
and
by the
asks to
way.
meet there. When you finally meet up there, hey, wouldn't you know it, Stallman, the first squadron commodore you met on deck in the beginning cutscene, is here. Stallman tells us who he thinks is the perpetrator behind
he's got some
the
drip.
Sahagin
Look at this
killings,
guy.
a guy called Emmerich. This Sahagin drama continues for a while, and there is some fighting, lots of deaths, and pretty cool all-female pirate crew that shows up.
Okay.
There's also a brief moment in the story where we get a good look at the musketeer class that we would sadly never get.
Wait,
Also, just
they
an
scrapped
important
it?
sidetrack here. Take a look at this weapon. This is the 1.0 Arcanist main hand. In 1.0 Arcanists, or Arcanists, we're supposed to wield a staff and not a book. Yorianje used to carry one. Well, back to the story. At one point, you head to God's Grip in Lenosha to find Y'shtola engaged in a battle with Stallman. Stallman has found the supposed key to Seal Rock, but does not know how to use it. He wants Y'shtola to tell him, but she refuses and battle ensues. You are suddenly blinded by a bright light and you find yourself alone. Well, until you start looking around and you finally witness Stallman and two other shady dudes in a rushed
Like, the story
conversation
pacing is
about
like...
planning to claim the treasures of Seal Rock for their own gain. How dare they? Turns out it's Emmerich talking to Stallman. Y'shtola appears before you and explains that you both possess the ability to view the happenings of the past, the Echo. And again, we're served with some great unintentional foreshadowing.
Something ain't right.
Okay, wait, what? What is that? Okay, the sky becomes dark, clouds appear. What, yeah. Oh shit, wait, is this like the Bahamut thing? Wait, what was this? Or if not, just heavy
A meteor
ash.
shower suddenly erupts from the skies, raining light down upon you and the others. Shortly after, the Shadowless Man appears and steals the key from Stallman. Y'shtola tries to stop him, but he disappears. Shit happens, you wake up in Limsa Lominsa again, and hey, Badron is there. You remember Y'shtola mentioning the Echo. Discussing this with Badron, he tells you that a man called Blackburn left a message telling you to visit the Path of the 12, located in the Merchant's Ward in Ul'dah. And this is where the main story merges with the other city-state storylines and becomes one unified story.
Interesting.
The main story quest started at level 1, but was spread out over 4 level caps, level 1, level 10, level 15, and then finally level 20. Some of the gaping issues with the game was already known to the devs before launch, but Square Enix's view on this was that the game could be patched after launch and had insisted on a quick release and, arguably, earning a quick buck in the process. No big deal.
Yeah.
It's Final Fantasy. We'll be fine.
Yeah,
But
our
then
name brand
came the
carries
review,
us.
And it finally dawned on everyone that this game would not be ushering in the new golden era of Final Fantasy.
Oh
The
my
reviews
god.
were mostly negative, scoring 14 at 50% on game rankings and 49 out of 100 on Metacritic. UK Video Game Magazine, Computer and Video Games said,
The downfall.
Eorzea is a beautiful world with huge potential for vast adventures, but it's just a shame that this first voyage into it is such a misstep. IGN stated that much of the promise with the combat system and depth of the crafting mechanics are drowned, unfortunately, under a sea of interface and performance issues that hinder the
Yeah, I mean,
experience at
it's
nearly
right.
every step.
Absolutely right.
Further stating that while patches might improve the experience, it stayed at the time of the review made
Oof.
it not a world worth visiting.
Oh.
GameSpot, in addition to warning players away from the game, said that Final
Burn.
Fantasy XIV is a notable entry to the genre, but only for what it lacks. One of the most devastating reviews, however, came from PC Gamer, calling the game a shallow, slow, grind-heavy MMO crippled by a horrible interface and nonsensical limitations.
player limitations. Yep,
Critics
that's
agreed
about
that
right.
The game's graphics were good, and the game's score by Nobuo Uematsu was enjoyable and great. But that was as much praise as the game would get. Criticism was laid against the game's gameplay pace,
man, this is the
convoluted
downfall here.
interface, bugs and glitches, and the incredibly slow pace of the main story. The leave system was criticized for being too restrictive, and the fatigue system was confusing and unnecessary. It was generally seen as a great disappointment, both as an MMORPG and a mainline entry in the Final Fantasy series. Final Fantasy XIV is now in serious trouble. The release of
Can you imagine, like, okay, maybe your favorite game franchise isn't like Final Fantasy. Maybe it's like, I don't know, like Halo. Like, okay, I can feel that for Halo. Halo, Resident Evil, Sonic the Hedgehog fans, I am so sorry. You imagine you have your favorite series, and then like one really bad entry comes in, and it punches a little bit harder than you can take, or the community can take, or at least the game over franchise overall can take. And it's like it's rough. I know it's rough, but this definitely seemed to be like the doomsday.
So the game sparked immediate player
The
backlash
big one,
in addition
right?
to its negative critical reception, throwing Square Enix into damage control.
Yeah.
The initial
yeah.
30-day free trial was extended twice, while the game received heavy patches to rectify the worst
Actually, I take that back. It's not as bad as Fallout 76.
bugs and glitches. But the ship was sinking. Fast. Player numbers were declining at an incredible rate, and the bad reviews just kept coming in. The dev team is overwhelmed.
What?
Solved, another one shows up. The game's servers are unable to keep up, and players already struggling with frame rate drops now face massive lag as well. And we're talking game-breaking lag, as in mobs actually being 2 skills ahead of you while battling. This would probably not surprise you if you knew that the game was designed in such a way that every interaction was registered server-side and not client-side.
Oh
That's
no.
right, even your menu. So, if the servers started lagging, well, you'd have to wait for your menu to load. If you even had time to do that between the server crashes. Mid-October 2010, the servers would now constantly crash and maintenance would often take hours to complete. November 2010.
Oh my
Tanaka
god.
appears in interviews apologizing for the state of the game. Whatever happened behind the scenes in Square Enix HQ is difficult to know, as Square was usually extremely tight-lipped about its business practices at the time.
They usually happen, yeah.
The game was in a surreal limbo, where no one really knew what was going on. Just to add to the absurdity, on the lodestone, it was business as usual, with patch notes and messages from the devs about trivial things, like crafting and gathering tips. Then, in December of 2010...
Were there any 1.0 players who were like on extreme amounts of copium and were like, nah, the game's just fine, brother, y'all just overreacting, y'all just a bunch of sheep following what they're saying out there about how it's bad? Like, did anybody know anyone like that? Because I'd like to interview a person who firmly believed that back then. I will do it.
Square Enix announced that the PS3 version was to be indefinitely delayed from its original March 2011 release date, with Square Enix saying that it would not release the game for that platform until it fully met the quality standards suitable for the Final Fantasy series.
Good play.
Oh yeah, I barely mentioned that. They planned for this game, to be on the PS3. Seriously. Following this announcement, subscriptions for the Windows version were also suspended indefinitely. Finally, Tanaka speaks up. He takes full responsibility for the disaster's launch, and shortly after, Square Enix announced that Tanaka and Komoto had both been removed from their positions as producer and director, respectively.
It sucks because, like, the game looks beautiful. Like, all the budget went into, like, the motion capture and, like, the graphics, and, like, everything else was, like, secondary, and I'm like, dude... I think it would have been better to have like the graphics and animations like lackluster and have like great gameplay. That would have translated way better. But like this looks beautiful, man. I just watching all of this happen. I'm like,
and director,
it's crazy.
Square Enix is quick to find a new dev team leader. One man would now fill the shoes of the 2 men before him. A man that had little to no experience with Final Fantasy in the past. Was put in charge of Square Enix's latest Final Fantasy title,
Praise
from impending doom. Naoki Yoshida enters the stage, and Eorzea is about to be forever changed.
Praise be!
Hey, we're gonna have to save that for episode 4. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode and series in general. If you did, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe if you're new around here. And as usual, leave a comment telling me what you think.
Damn, that was good. Okay, that's just crazy, dude. It is nuts. It still blows my mind to this day how Yoshi P, I mean, it wasn't only just Yoshi P, but like under his leadership, he was able to take this game, turn it around to the game that we have today that we know and love. Like, it's just crazy. This game could have just been thrown in the dumpster fire, and it could have been like, okay, well, we're done. We'll never, ever look back on this and say, okay, it was scrap. But like, literally, the game was burned to the ground, rebuilt with love and care sewn into every stitch, and it's the game that we get today. And it's just crazy. It's crazy to me. I'm just happy to be here. I'm just happy to be here.